It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for The Last of Us on HBO. I have some interesting and pretty cool behind the scenes photos for you guys from prep work that they're doing for filming that's going to be coming up in the next few days. All of the pictures we're going to take a look at are pictures from a small set location that they created in downtown Calgary, Canada, which is one of the key cities in Canada where they're filming for The Last of Us. If you watch the channel, you know this, and you're probably getting tired of me saying it every time, but every video we get new viewers, so that's why I mention it on each video. But I live in Calgary, and I've been able to visit set a few times in the past and capture some pretty cool behind the scenes photos and footage. You can go check it out if you're interested. This time around, I was also able to visit this set location myself and capture all of these photos. So all of these are things that I captured myself. There's actually a possibility that they're filming the part 2 story, which is extremely interesting. And if that's the case, that leads to a bigger chance that they're going to be integrating both part 1 and part 2 in season 1, because they have not yet finished filming all of season 1. Now, they could be filming ahead for season 2, hence why they're doing part 2 stories, but I doubt it. I think they're probably gonna bring aspects of part 2 into the first game, maybe a bit earlier, and potentially build it up, and maybe give us the actual story from part 2 in season 2. There's a lot of very interesting details that I do want to talk about. It appears that they are prepping to set the location for a Fedra camp, possibly the Fedra Gate that we saw in part 2. So stay tuned, we'll be right back to break this down. Alright, as always, before we jump into this, smash that like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. With that, let's dive right into it. I actually visited this set location yesterday and today. There wasn't much going on yesterday, but there was a lot more today when I went back, and I plan to go back within the next few days as well to see if there's going to be any changes. But this is basically the location. I mean, it's a big parking lot which has fences all around it. When I went there yesterday, they were just starting to build this location. What they were doing is actually putting all of these vines and vegetation on the walls. We see a bit of that here and here, making this area look more apocalyptic. So basically build the atmosphere. We have another one here. Now what's interesting is that opposite where the parking lot is, there's actually somewhat of a balcony. It's not too high up, but it's somewhere that's open to the public so you can go. So I went up there yesterday and took these pictures. I forgot to go there today. It would have been cool to kind of go up there and see the camp that we're going to take a look at, but I'll probably go back in the next few days. But this just gives us a pretty good idea how big this location is. I mean, it's not too big, but good enough of a size for a pretty major scene to be taking place. The other thing I do want to mention is that there was vegetation and leaves laid out all on the ground right here. This is not what this place looks like. This is just empty. So this is what they put for production. The next picture is a closer look at that. We can see more workers here putting up the vines, and then a zoomed in version of those workers working hard to put up all of those vines and vegetation on the walls. Now, when I went there today, it looked very different. I mean, before I even show the photos, one thing I want to mention, which was pretty interesting, is that there was security there with a canine or a dog of the same breed. I don't know if it was an actual canine or not, but that was very interesting. I don't know if it was just the security guard who wanted to bring his dog along, or whether they brought the dog in for security purposes. But it's weird because we've never seen anything like that before. Like, the security has never been this strict in the past. So that's interesting. I mean, it was definitely not a comfortable feeling to be walking around with the dog in the background, taking pictures, because it felt like the dog was going to be released at any minute. So I was kind of on edge. But anyway, this is actually what that looked like today. We can see there is tents all around. There's even something here. I don't know what it is, but it looks like something military. But there's obviously some tents around and everything like that. And it gives us a safe zone vibe. Like it looks like it's some type of a quarantine zone or something like that. It actually reminded me of one of those FEMA camps or something similar that you may have seen in the past when there's an emergency. So that was very interesting. Before I move on to the rest, this is actually the balcony thing that I was talking about. So the previous pictures I took were from up here. So I'm gonna go back up there next time I go there to get a picture from high up, just like the previous ones. We can see another shot here of the nets. We can see the camp. This was actually when I was driving past the place. But obviously you can see that there's a trailer which says Emergency Operations, Utah National Guard. That is extremely interesting. Obviously there's no sign of Fedra here. So that's something that is still a question mark, whether this is a Fedra camp or not. But it is a possibility. One of the things that I do want to mention is that we do know that they were filming something in the last few days which was supposed to be in Utah because the license plates were Utah plates and also the police car that was there said Utah on it. So I'm assuming that this is related to what they were doing for those particular scenes. But one other thing I do want to mention is that this probably won't be the actual quarantine zone from part 1. From earlier on in part 1 because they already filmed all of that way in the past. And I don't think it was in Utah. I mean, I could be wrong about this particular thing, but I don't think the quarantine zone was in Utah. We do know that the Fedra bases, most of them were in Kansas City based on the previous behind the scenes photos that we've looked at. So this doesn't even seem to be related to that. So it seems to be something completely different, like a different city that has a camp of some sort in it. But we see a clear shot of that. It's a medical trailer. And then we have another shot of the tents that we were looking at and another one right here. Pretty cool. I mean, it looks like you're in the middle of a kind of emergency situation because there's all of these tents around and it gives you a pretty weird vibe. But we do see the same military equipment type of thing that I mentioned before. And obviously we see a lot more tents all around the place, which is extremely interesting. So we have another one here. Now, one thing I do want to mention is obviously there were fences all around, so I couldn't actually go in. And there was a security guard, like I said, with a freaking dog. But this is the best I could capture. I mean, it may not be the best, but it looks pretty cool from my perspective. This is some of the vegetation and the leaves that I was talking about earlier on in the video. But if we kind of take a look at those pictures, keep it in mind, and look at the Fedra Gate from part 2, we can see that it has a similar vibe. I mean, it's not identical, but it has the same type of vibe. We also know that this was when Ellie and Dina were heading to the city of Seattle. So it looks like if this is in fact the same story or the same scene, then instead of the Fedra base being in Seattle, it'll be in Utah. But like you see, I mean, it's not quite the same, like I said, but I feel like it has the same type of vibe, especially this particular scene from the game. But this is a shot of Dina and Ellie heading to the same place that we were looking at. And as you can see, the ground is filled with all of these vegetation and everything like that. So I'm assuming that those leaves and vegetation that we were looking at before from the set could be put in the middle of the road at some point when they start filming. And more of those rusted up cars that they keep using on a recycle to obviously make it more apocalyptic. I don't have much more to say. I mean, it is extremely interesting that they are building some sort of a emergency safe zone or quarantine zone, a small version obviously. So there's a possibility, it's not 100%, but it's a possibility that it could be something that they're bringing in from part 2. Which is interesting. And again, it goes back to the possibility that they're either starting filming for part 2 already, maybe for season 2, or they're bringing elements of part 2 into the first season. It's not the first time we've seen that before because they are bringing in Jackson a little bit earlier than they did in the video game, and also they're expanding a lot of different stories that they didn't really focus on in the first game. So it's possible that they're doing some sort of a remixed version of the Fedra Gate story. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.